Everyone, here we go. This is our last time meeting. Good morning, and I say good morning so we could all wake up. My name is Angie. I am Time to Thrive Powerhouse. Today I am talking about coaching the mind of an entrepreneur. So being an entrepreneur has many fallacies and many myths. And a lot of people go into business thinking what? They're going to be what? Successful, looking for success, looking for freedom, right? So I want you to think for yourself, what does it mean for you to be an entrepreneur? We're going to go into it in terms of the mindset, right? Because a lot of times we go into a business looking for freedom. Go ahead.
Being an entrepreneur is kind of like to be your own boss.
To be your own boss.
Work on your own schedule,
Own time, own boss. What else? Go ahead. Thinking outside the box, perfect. What else? Right? Because right now what I'm going to go into is the mindset behind what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I'm going to refer to a book. Have you ever heard of the EMyth by any chance? You've heard of it. Tell me what you've heard about it.
Well, I have the book, but I have a big library and I haven't gotten it.
Okay, so that is a great book for any entrepreneur. So if you're looking into reading or you're interested, okay, you know what? I don't want to work for anyone or I don't want to have a job. A lot of times in entrepreneurship, we say a job, there's nothing wrong with holding a job, but a job stands for just over broke, which means that you are getting paid for an exchange of your time, an hourly rate. But there's only 24 hours in the day. So how much money can you really make in 24 hours if you were to work all 24 hours? And with the economy changing, we got to be mindful more now than ever, right? Entrepreneurs are uprising because of the economy, because a job doesn't pay enough, right, to actually be able to sustain yourself. So let's give it a thought. So right now, the topic of today's training is coaching the mind of the entrepreneur. Now here, let me see, we got this. Let's see. Let me see. On. All right. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And that's what we were just discussing. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? As your own boss, freedom of time. Let's give it a little story. Let's say someone out there is the best baker. Let's call her Linda. Linda is the best baker, and friends are constantly telling her, hey, Linda, you should open your own what? Bakery, right? Oh, because you make the best pies. You make the best, it could be anything. It could be the best mechanic. It could be the best programmer, the best hairstylist. You should open your own, right? And name a small business. How many of you have thought of a small business or have your own business, right? So let's say if you were to open your own small business, what would it be?
I have one.
You have one. Great. So you have a small business. So some of the stories that I'm going to tell you are going to hit home because it takes that experience to navigate what it means to actually start up a small business, to know exactly how it feels to be in that development, because it has 3 stages, just like humans. We have infantile, we have what? Teenage years, right? And then we have maturity. So you have a business. What kind of business do you have?
I had a painting contractor.
Okay, painting contractor, right. And this is it. So here, why did you go into painting and contractor business?
Well, because I have been a contractor previously.
Okay.
I just enjoy the work.
You enjoyed the work and now you're just started. How long ago did you start it?
It's been since January.
Since January. So we're going to go into April, so 4 months, going into the 5th month. So this is great because what I'm about to tell you is going to open up your creative entrepreneur mindset in a way that does you justice. Anyone here that gets this training and has ever thought of or is currently in the business or is thinking, you know what, I should go into open up my own business, the mindset and the learnings that we're going to have from this and the book itself. Once you go through the book, so you have it in the library, right? What's your name again? Andrew. You have it in your library already, so it's really important to, invest some time into either getting the audio or getting going through the book, so you could get really into the practicality of it. Because, you know, we can learn a lot of things, but if we don't apply the knowledge we get to learn, then it's not going to make any difference in your life. So here, we're going to come back to this question. So there's an entrepreneur, and there's to be a successful entrepreneur. A lot of people go into small business. Many people go into opening their small business, but very few are actually successful at it, right? Very few are successful at being entrepreneurs because what do you think? What are some of the challenges that we may face? For example, you started in January. What are some of the challenges?
Well, it's been pretty easy going for me, but I can see that
Marketing,
getting money-wise,
capital, finances.
capital, it's a lot of work for, if you're on your own.
If you're on your own, it's a lot. But then you're on your own boss, you get your free time. So the fallacy with being an entrepreneur, right, and working a job, you think that when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have more time. And it's what? The opposite. Now, there is a solution to that, right? And that's where the book is going to go into, because you're going into an industry. You love the painting, the contracting, but you don't know about the marketing. You don't know about the books. You don't know. There's so many aspects of small business that sometimes the baker, right, Linda, the story about Linda. Linda makes this amazing pies, this amazing cakes. She opens her small business, and then she comes to find out that, oh my goodness, there has to be books, inventory. She's going to need to not only bake these wonderful pies or cakes, she also has to serve them. She also now has to make the place clean up after herself. And here, her dream of being an entrepreneur has suddenly become a living nightmare. Because now she's 24/7 in this small business that she loved to do, that her friends told her, you make the most amazing pies. And now suddenly she's been employed by her business 24/7. Am I landing here? There's a difference between what we call having a system in place, which is what I'm going to go into, where the business has an excellent system. The business doesn't depend on the person that created it. So sometimes when we're new in the business, we want Joe's Pizzeria, Maria's, baking place. You put the name, it's such a pride to open up your own barbershop, your own mechanic, your own anything, your own gym, right? And then we don't realize that inquires what? You being there. What happens? What's the mistake of an entrepreneur always having to be there, or the job to depend on that one person? What happens?
Well, they're still in the same situation that they were in when they had a regular job, when they're trading their time for money.
Exactly. And that's what I want to go into. That's one of the biggest fallacies in being an entrepreneur. That if your business only depends on you to be there, then you don't have a business. You basically have employed yourself for this so-called business, this small business LLC that you have established, right? So let's go into this. So here's the book. So this is where you want to write this down. The title of the book is the EMyth, and I'm not getting paid for marketing the book or anything like that, right? This is just a reference. What I've been doing, as you can see, anytime I do a workshop, I'm telling you, there are experts out there already in the industry, right, figuring out how to give us the information that we need for the things that we are looking into accomplishing. So here we have Michael E. Gerber. Mr. Gerber goes into the myth of what it means to be an entrepreneur. So here, the truth about the entrepreneurial myth. So Gerber describes the misconception that most businesses are started by entrepreneurs seeking what? Freedom, right? I want to be my own boss. I want to have my own schedule, my own. When they are created by technicians. So this is the term that the author uses, technician, people with technical skills, the baker, the painter, the mechanic. They know how to work in the business, but they have never really created a system for building businesses. They don't have the entrepreneur mindset. They have done this job like baking, cooking, cleaning, but they don't have the mindset because they think that doing this job is what the business is about. And being in the job doesn't really allow you to scale or grow. Entrepreneurial mindset means you're seeking into growing and scaling your business. So eventually, you don't have to work in the business, but you're working on your business. So I'm being emphatic about these things. In the business, meaning you're actually doing the work. However, you can hire someone to do that kind of work while you work on the business, which is the marketing, right? The systematizing, right? Creating an operations system, right? That can work for your business. Now here, people with technical skills, the technician, so that could be anything, the baker, the cook, the cleaner, the construction worker, the landscaper, the author, we have a writer here, the author, any of that stuff, who lacked the entrepreneurial mindset needed to grow and scale their business. The way this workshop is going to grow is we're going to go into the next level. Successful business owners must learn about 3 main roles in every successful business and how to balance these roles effectively to build sustainable and thriving enterprises. So there's three roles necessary for this business, any entrepreneurial business, to work according to Gerber, right? We have the technician, we have the manager, and we have the entrepreneur. Going back to this Linda story. Linda, great baker. She opens up her bakery, and she's working in the business, baking the pies, serving the pies, cleaning after, the night is over, looking at the inventory. Next day, same thing. She's going to bed at 2, 3 in the morning, waking up at 5, 6, 7 to open up again to make sure she's ready for business. She does this, right, at the beginning, like for the first few months, and then she finds herself exhausted. Like, oh my gosh, this dream of mine suddenly became a nightmare. So then she gets the idea that I should hire someone to help me. And that's where we become, right? When we have this business and it's outgrowing our technical abilities, we start hiring people that can manage the place, right? So okay, maybe someone that does the books, someone that does something else other than you. Now suddenly you're like, okay, I'm relieved from doing the work, and you hire some people. The manager's in charge of the, how can I say this? The practicality of things, right? What does a manager do in a restaurant? Oversee the employees, hires. Is he the boss? He's not the boss. So think about it. The manager oversees, hires and fires, makes sure that things are okay, right? But he's not the boss, right? So the manager is more oriented, okay, what needs to get done on a day-to-day basis to make sure that the business is running. But he's not the boss, and he's not envisioning growth. He's just doing what he's getting paid for doing, which is manage. He's not envisioning growth, because that's the difference between a technician. Technician is the one that's doing the work. The manager is the one that's actually foreseeing, making sure that there's processes in place that get done. And then we have the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the one that casts the vision of how to scale this restaurant and open other restaurants. So he's the one that's going to develop the systems in place that the manager is going to follow, the systems of operations. So when we have a business like yours, right, and you're the owner, your job is to go from technician to manager to entrepreneur, because it takes someone to navigate each of those roles to be able to teach someone how to be the technician, how you want it done. Come to find out, Linda, after hiring some people, she's starting to get complaints about the pies not tasting good, about certain things not done right. There's mix-ups. The order got done in a certain way. The bank is calling her because now the books are not done right, because she hired a manager who hired other people. So now she thought she was free, right? Because now she just delegated her responsibility, but she didn't teach the manager how to get it done. She just thought this person who's not the owner is going to come and actually take care of her business. That's a fallacy, right? Unless, as entrepreneurs, we have developed a specific system for the manager, we can't expect the manager to create their own system. Do you understand where I'm heading with this? So for us entrepreneurs, when we do something, anything, it could be, for example, let's say I am great at financial services, which is one of the things that I do, right? Since I was 21, I learned how to do financial service, a variety of financial services. It could be opening up retirement accounts, college funds. It could be any of that stuff. In the process, I also learned how to be an entrepreneur, how to train and develop people, to license them so that way they could do their own things. So now my role from being a technician where I learned how to do it, and then from managing a team as a team leader where I'm showing the team how to do certain things, to an entrepreneur where I have a system in place which is already documented how to do it so that way anyone can come in and do what I did without my presence being there. So things need to be documented and systematized. So as soon as a person walks into your shop, it has the logo, it has the colors, it has certain things, and things get done the same way every single time. So those are the 3 roles, which I'm not going into it because I want to encourage each of you to take your self-development, right? And if being an entrepreneur is something that you really want to be good at and be successful at, you need to develop your skills on what it means to be a successful entrepreneur. We can't just wing it. We need to surround ourselves with people that are successful entrepreneurs, and we need to mastermind and create those projects ahead of us to create that system in place. Does that make sense? Now look at this. Now, working on your business, not in it. This is something that I spoke about. In it is baking the pie. Working on it is creating those systems where anyone can come in, or where the cook is going to come in and they know exactly how many cups of flour to use, how much sugar to use, where a good baker can make this successful business thrive. So it doesn't need the best baker. Just the best baker, the prototype, the owner, she's the one that's going to list, okay, I make my cakes like this. It needs a cup of flour, 2 eggs, a stick of butter. I don't bake, but something like that, right? And she's going to document it. So that way when she's not there, whoever's coming to take that position, right, in her system of having a successful business, then that person can just look at the recipe and do it. They don't have to be the best baker. They just have to follow the system that's in place. So the same thing with your business, what is the intake, right, form? So everybody can do it the same way. So eventually as it grows, because an entrepreneur thinks of scaling and multiplying, right? Scaling, meaning not just 1, 2, 3 of the same kind of business. Because sometimes what entrepreneurs at the beginning do, it gets the work to be so hard that you cut back. You're like, no, I can't go that big. And then you start shrinking your business because you didn't do the job to work on growing yourself. Because at the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you our businesses is a reflection of who we are. The more we work on ourselves, right? Remember, who's running the business? You are. The business is just a vehicle. It's a platform where you get to express your creativity, right? Where you get to express, how much growth you want from that kind of business. The business doesn't make the person makes the business. So here, the mindset is to prioritize working on your business rather than getting bogged down in the day-to-day tasks. So working on the business, planning those systems of operations that people can come and, to free up your time to actually be. Sometimes I wonder, right? For example, have you seen chefs and cooks and all these restaurant owners? Right? I know someone very close to me, was my husband, right, who is like constantly, right, running to places to get food, to, Restaurant Depot, to do all this stuff. And I wonder, like, wow, if someone else, and he did have a manager, but she's like, what, I want to do something else. So she just quit, or she just left. But if he doesn't have a system to replace those positions, people being trained on that, or something that has a training program for that position, then he's stuck doing it all on his own. And that's what happens in a lot of businesses. A lot of business owners want to do it themselves. Or I'm the one that does it best, right? Rather than creating that prototype, that documentation that says how to do it, so that way someone else can get trained on it, and then you can continue replicating, right, your business. Because growth doesn't happen from just one person doing it. Growth happens from multiple franchises, and I put that word in there, right? Franchises doing it. So now, Gerber encourages us entrepreneurs to focus on developing SPS program. You're like, what is GPS? No, SPS. Systems, processes, and strategies, which when you go into the book, Andrew, when you get the Audible, whichever way you consume your education, Look into what that means for you and how can that be reflected in your personal business. When you have systems in place, processes and strategies, then with an effective SPS program, this will allow your business to run smoothly and effectively without their constant presence. What's the point of building a business if you have no time for your family? If you have no time to do things you actually enjoy? Now the business became a cage, right? And that's what happens with entrepreneurs. New entrepreneurs feel caged by the limitations imposed on themselves because there is no system in place that allows them to train other people so they could focus on other things, even growing and scaling the business. So I'm hitting you in ways that you might not have heard before, but it's out there. It's all information, right, that has been studied and researched as to what makes a successful business. The most successful business with a revenue of $40 billion a year is what? The Golden Arches. Is what? McDonald's, right? And the book talks about that. How is it that McDonald's, have you gone to a McDonald's and who is actually working in McDonald's? It's like 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 19-year-olds. But everything is the same. McDonald's is all over the world because they have systematized. The colors are here, the same colors are in China, the same colors are anywhere you go to. So now look at this. The franchise model. Now, because this is key to working on our business, knowing what this means is important. The mindset as entrepreneurs is that we get value out of adopting a franchise-like approach. We're not saying we're going to franchise our business, but we want to do a franchise-like approach. What does that mean? This is where every aspect of our business gets what? Documented, right? For example, if I'm doing a financial services business, I'm going to say, okay, when a person comes in, this is how you're going to greet them. Welcome them the same way. Take them into a process of licensing and training the same way, where everyone gets the same training. There's no disparities or discongruence, where it gets standardized and it gets replicatable. And that's with every business, right? So are you understand? Does anyone have any questions? Has a light bulb turned on from these concepts? Right? So when you go through this book, this is an older book, but I can tell you a lot of my entrepreneur partners, anytime any one new person comes through their franchise business, they tell them, listen to this book. Because a lot of us have been grown to think of an entrepreneurial as, you know what, something that we don't have systems in place, something that we're like, okay, we go into our own business not really knowing how to be an entrepreneur. So we have to shift our identity, but to shift our identity, we need to understand the processes behind being an entrepreneur. And that requires some understanding of these concepts, because I'm not going into them. That's to entice you. So yes, you got to do the work, because guess what? Who we are is reflected on the business. Therefore, if I can tell you what I know, but that doesn't mean you have integrated that into who you are. And that takes effort, meaning learning that and then applying it in your business and then coming to create this system for yourself with the guidance, right? Always looking at what other successful entrepreneurs are doing. Now, by systematizing our business as entrepreneurs, we can achieve consistency, scalability, and ultimately greater success. Now, this other concept is Mr. Berger talks about the Turnkey Revolution. Now, from that theme, what do you think that means? The Turnkey Revolution, right? Have you heard of it before? Okay, so this is what it means. The mindset is for entrepreneurs to create businesses that can be easily replicated and operated by others. Go ahead. Yes, just like that. The Turnkey Revolution means that, you know what, I'm going to create a kind of business that I can hand it over to anyone. I can train them, because what they had in McDonald's when they were starting, they had Hamburger University. every person that bought the franchise, right, because it's a capital, it's an investment, that bought a McDonald's will go through the training because they're replicating exactly. They have to run it exactly the way it was meant to be run. They can't come here and have room for creativity in that concept because it's already been standardized. So then they can hand that to anyone, right? But they didn't say just anyone without them knowing what to do. They created a university, right, which is a training system. A training system. And when we are entrepreneurs, once we create our prototype, which is the business that you ideally, you know what, this is my baby. I've created systems in place. I've documented how things are going to be done. I've picked the colors. You know what, for example, my business does a lot of green. Mine is Time to Thrive Powerhouse. Why Time to Thrive, right? Because to me, I was labeled a survivor from my own experience, always a survivor from childhood. Why am I going into, it's time to thrive. It's not just surviving. A lot of times in the mental health field, they tell you you're a survivor. And you're meant to just, do that. And a lot of us, the majority of the people, are surviving, making choices that are not really good. Survival helps you to a certain point. But then it comes, you know what, is this it? No. A powerhouse generates energy, right? I'm a personal trainer. I do Zumba. I do body combat. I do all these things. I have different aspects in my life that encompasses my business. And why do I pick green? To me, that represents life, energy, thrive. So you will see consistency in my presentations, all different kinds of colors, green, yellows, right? Because I'm consistently showing people what I represent. And you'll see my logo at the end. You'll see all the things, why I have worked so hard in developing, because I'm following the system. What am I doing, right? So in case I'm not around and I hire someone to represent Type 2 Thrive Powerhouse, I'm going to let them know, listen, these are the colors, these are the templates. You can create whatever content you want as long as it goes in alignment with what? Learning, self-development, coaching. You can do body, it could be nutrition, it could be health, as long as it goes with the themes of my business. Because I've already documented it, right? To be done in a way that it's time to thrive in anything. It could be life, it could be finances, it could be nutrition, it could be health, right? So if anyone wants to come and run my business, I can say, yes. I will tell them, look, you can run through my business or work in my business and do your own thing for a portion. I'll give you ownership. I'll get 10% of that. So they are owners of the business, but because I'm letting them use my system, I'm going to get compensated some money because they're not the one that created it. Who created it? I did. They can come and do the same thing. If they're personal trainers or nutritionists or life coaches, I can hire them to my business where they can have everything that I have already, right? They don't have to recreate the wheel, but they will have to abide by my systems and use the colors, or they can start their own business, right? But just to give you an idea, right, where I don't have to be there. Does that make sense? Now here, and that's important, right? When being an entrepreneur comes, we always want to empower others. It's not about Angie. It's not about you. It's about others. How can we employ other people to be their own business owners? Because ownership, I will tell you, when it comes to, for example, we have a lounge, right? My partner and I have a lounge. When it comes to growing our business, it's been more effective to get equity owners, meaning you get a percentage of whatever gets done in a week or in an evening, than to get employees. Does that make sense? Because now they have sweat equity. They have skin equity. Now, the growth of this business depends on their own efforts. Because if they don't pull in the effort, it's the difference between working an hour. People can work an hour and not really produce anything, right? Than actually producing something or results in the business. The approach has two major benefits. It increases the value of the business. Because the more you can open, right, the more equity it's going to have. It also frees up time for owners to pursue other interests and opportunities. So when we have developed a successful entrepreneurial business, it allows us to actually bring those same systems into other people that want to open other businesses, that want to grow themselves, because you're showing a success track. Based on the track record, it shows, you know what? these people are really doing well. They're really, producing, or if it's income that a person's looking like, they're really financially independent based on the system that they have produced, which is exactly what it means to be an entrepreneur. You can use different platforms, right? There's a lot of opportunities out there to start own businesses, right? Where they already have the resources or the products that you want to sell or market. It's just a matter of personally having a system in place that works for you, right? When it comes to replication, training, development, strategizing, all the things that Mr. Here with the book talks about, Mr. Gerber talks about. So here, the last question, right, which was at the beginning, what does it mean to be a successful entrepreneur in today's economy? Being an entrepreneur means taking initiative to create, innovate, solve problems in a dynamic and rapidly changing business landscape. Today's economy requires us to be innovative, meaning that whatever solutions we are bringing to today's problems need to be in a way that has flexibility, because the rigidity, right, what worked in the past is no longer working now. Why? We have technology changes. We have AI, right? There's so many things that have shifted and changed, so we need to adapt along with the times. Before, for example, I started in the financial services industry, and we used to do applications. Let's say I was doing an application for an investment account, or I was doing an application for a life insurance product, or an annuity, or any of these financial services things. And it was all paper, right? And we got to go through a licensing process which says, if someone makes a mistake, you have to write a line and then put the initial of the client and all. Now, that no longer happens because everything happens where? In an iPad or a phone. So you see, I've been in that industry for 18, 19 years. Things change over time where it requires a person to also shift. I'm an instructor for a company that I work with in terms of licensing people for financial services. And one of the teachers, he was like born in 1944. He was good with teaching the book, right? Remember, before we had books, now I have a 14-year-old who does, his backpack is the lightest thing that's come because it only has a computer. And all his stuff is like, how can I check his work? Because I'm still, I'm from the 80s. So I'm still like, okay, where's your work? I need to check. And he's like, everything's in the Chromebook. And I'm like, okay. And there's portals, passwords. There's a new way to actually do all this work. And you all are like, yeah, she's probably talking about ancient history here, right? Because everything gets submitted online through a portal, through this. Before, right, it was actual papers, right? So my challenge with that is the person that was born in 1944 that was teaching the class, and now everything was through an iPad, and you had to project it, Apple TV, this and that. It was too much for him to transition, so he couldn't keep up with the changes in technology, right? So you know how now there's no taxis, now we got Uber, we got all this. If someone that's older doesn't know how to download the application, then they are what? They're not catching up to the times, and it's harder for them to navigate the space that we're in. The same thing happens with an entrepreneur. When we are not constantly shifting and changing as technologies change, we're going to be constantly falling back, because tomorrow someone else is coming up with a new idea to solve that problem that you had yesterday. So it requires us to be very attentive. For example, nowadays, what's working a lot to create business is social media, right? Learning how to utilize, not just for the likes, but to actually create a community of people that will actually, you will create a following, you will create influence, right? So a lot of the younger, right, because we're 18, 19, right? It's like, you already know how to do that. Now, how can you leverage what you know to actually build a successful business, right? Leveraging what you love to do to actually build a successful business. Now, here, your business is a distinct reflection of who you are. So here again, we've had 4 coaching sessions, workshops. A lot of times, right, we are focused on the outside, right? The nutrition, what we eat, the exercising. We went over what is life coaching, right? Last time we did finances, right? we tend as a community, as people, we tend to focus on outside. Okay, what's the solution? When in reality, what's critical is what's inside. So if you're an asset, right, if you're a stock, right, for companies out there, if a company is a stock, if your company is going to be publicly traded, right, you're going to put it out there, you're going to sell it, and the IPO is coming up, and you want your company to have high value, what would you do to it? What would it have to be, right? Would it have to be just the one that you are, or would it have to be a big company, right? Would it have to, right? So now, when it comes to stocks or value, right, what adds value to you, it's what's going to reflect in your business. And not just you in one area of your life, mentally, emotionally, physically, all the areas of your life, right, are going to impact the production of your business or how successful your business is. So in reality, right, all these workshops that I've done in terms of life coaching really comes down to you. Really comes down to what you're doing, what value are you adding to your life on a day-to-day basis. And that could be, you know what, are you having a healthy diet? Are you exercising? Because it's all in the mind. It's all in the mindset when it comes to being successful with entrepreneur. Yes, learning the how-tos, right? And at the same time, knowing the why. Why are you going in that? People are not exhausted from working in their business. People are exhausted because they forgot why they actually started this business, right? When people have a clear why as to anything, it could be health, it could be fitness, it could be finances, right? There needs to be a revival of the why on a consistent basis, that the how becomes just a to-do, right? It no longer becomes questionable. We start questioning how much work we have to put into anything, or even into a personal transformation, because we never clarify the why. So if there's anything you take into consideration from today's training, is why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Or why do you want to be a successful entrepreneur? Why did you even come to this workshop, right? Because what I'm giving you is nuggets of wisdom. It's not the whole thing, right? But it's the beginning. It's to spark up something within you to say, you know what, if there's an ocean of information as to how to be a successful entrepreneur, or how can I continue connecting with, for example, you can connect with me, I'm going to give you the information, right? You can connect with me, and we can start working on businesses, or just having talks. Because when you can talk to someone else about what you plan to do and become accountable for what you're looking into accomplishing, then a lot of things, it's just like when people go to the gym, they show up when they have a personal trainer. When if they don't, they may just stay home. Like, you know what? I'm not going to go, right? But when people actually keep themselves accountable with other people, with the goals they have, then eventually, with collaborating, we get to learn a lot. Here we go. So this is Time to Thrive Powerhouse. That's my Instagram link, that's my email, and that's my business cell phone number. So you can take a screenshot of this. I did get Andrew's business card. If you do have a business card, if you want to talk to me about something, do reach out. I know some of the students have texted me. You know, there are entrepreneurial opportunities out there. There are more people like myself. There are more coaches. There's big communities in terms of what coaching, life coaching is. And it's just a matter of connecting yourself to a community that's like-minded, meaning successful people will be around successful people. And when you do more of that, for example, I got into learning how to be an entrepreneur at 21. I'm 39 now. So my husband and I have been able to build six-figure income businesses, where I retired from being a teacher, which is what I used to be in 2015, right? And pursuing things that I enjoy. But it didn't happen overnight. And it didn't happen without the influence of other successful entrepreneurs that taught me, right? The power of self-development, right? No other development, but the power of how everything that we go through, right? The adversities along with the challenges are actually opportunities for us to grow and amplify the things that we learn, right? Now, that requires building relationships with the right people, right? My husband always says it's not about what you do, it's about who you know, right? Because building connections with people will give you access, will give us access to some of the opportunities that maybe by ourselves we won't have. Now, thank you so much. This has been today's training. I'm open for questions. Anybody has any questions? Go ahead, Andrew.
I'll definitely look at the book EMyth.
Mm-hmm.
That's from my big library.
Yes.
Can you name other books that have helped you in the past?
Well, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. No, they want for the recording if you could use the microphone, because they're recording it out there.
My question is, what other books do you recommend, like EMyth?
Yes.
Please.
So Think and Grow Rich is another book by Napoleon Hill, right? Another book in terms of personal motivation is called The Motivation Manifesto by Brandon Burchard. He has this book also called The High Performance Habits. So these are habits that high performers. So when it comes to being an entrepreneur, productivity is really important, right? Results is really important. So High Performance Habits by Brandon Burchard. And there's this app. Now this is an investment in your self-development. There's an app called Growth Day. You can go in your app store. It started 3 years ago. Brandon Burchard opened it, and I'm grandfathered into it. So I think I pay like $49, $50 a month, let's say, and they give you daily fires. It's called Daily Fire. They give you an assessment tool where you can assess what you do for the day in terms of the high performance habits. And then we have live coaching on Wednesdays. Actually today, Wisdom Wednesdays, where we have different coaches like Trent Shelton, right? Different coaches from the coaching industry. And then they have live events in California. So Growth Day is an app which I found because I come from Ecuador, right? My family, yes, they're truckers, they have landscapes, they have their own businesses. But when it comes to valuing self-development and valuing scaling and, growing in general, having a quality of life that's beyond anyone's belief, it requires a community of people, right, that are in sync all the time. And it requires us. So that's my personal system. Growth Day is an app that I use on a day-to-day basis to listen, right? For example, yesterday's daily fire was on how to be mindful in the midst of chaos. Who doesn't have chaos in their life, right? Everybody has chaos in their life. And, and they were saying, okay, be mindful. What can you control when things are going, the heck, like everything is like crazy? Our breath, some things like that's like we take for granted. Sometimes the day-to-day waking up we take for granted. But if we don't have systems, personal systems of operations, right, that, hey, I came to find out when COVID happened that, hey, even though everything was closed, the gyms were closed, I work best when I have at least half an hour to pray, at least half an hour to work out, at least half an hour to journal and organize my day, and that's my preparation. And I've said this before. I tell my friends, if I don't call you until a certain time, it's because I'm not ready for human consumption. I'm not ready to give you something that you want to. It's like, sometimes people, when you are in the social services industry or you're a coach, people need your help all the time. However, the leader needs help first before helping. It's like putting the mask on. Sometimes we have to have certain things in place to give us the resources that we need to help other people. That's why this Community Growth Day has been, to me, a safe haven for the past 3 years since it started, because it has given me the ability to consistently, and then that's where I get all the books. So before, when I was a novice in self-development, I didn't have a target as to how many books I'm going to consume. It actually didn't really matter because I was just living on a day-by-day basis, bogged down by the demands of college, school, and all this stuff, things that were 24 hours based. But then when it comes to future, envisioning the future, then it requires, right, more people to influence us. And we get that from books. We don't have to have gone through it, right, to learn, right, some of these philosophies and mindsets, right? So those are some of the books that I think are absolutely great. And actually, Jorge, when we met, We were talking about the EMyth because we are entrepreneurs. He knows the language. Entrepreneurs will know. Entrepreneurs, like, oh, we have a certain kind of language because you know what it takes to start one, you know what it takes to run one, you know what it takes to actually systematize one, and then to actually get the people to go along with all of that, right? So it requires a community of people, right? And then as a writer, right, as an author, right, to have those places where you can market yourself or you can make yourself known is important. So being part of different communities is important. Anyone else? We're good? What did you learn today? So here, what's your biggest takeaway? Just think in the presentation, just think, maybe if you were in your head, what was your biggest takeaway today?
I guess my biggest takeaway is that I think that I'm on track with what the things that you mentioned, that I've already have one employee as needed pretty much, and I think when I began, that my mind was already in the, how can I scale this?
How can you scale it?
Yeah.
That's great. And you see and you've had experience in the business before. It's not like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to do this without any prior experience. You already worked for someone else doing what you do, and now you're like, okay, how can I improve it, right? And that's what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs have a vision as to what's the next level, because it requires that next level thinking to actually grow. Because what makes you different than the neighbor or your prior boss? Right? Because you found some things that sometimes when we work in an industry, we're like, oh, if things could be better in this, we have a lot of complaints about the job or whatever. And then we get the opportunity to actually create our own. Then we get to amend the problems that we had in our prior, position. We get to fix some of the things because most likely what we find as a problem is other people's problems as well. Believe me. Thank you for that. Anyone else? We're good? Awesome. So that has been my workshop for today. Thank you all for coming. I know I see people that have consistently shown up for the 4 sessions. I look forward to actually, Jorge and I will be evaluating any of you who have shown up, and we'll be calling you all just to kind of catch up on what happened throughout these 4 months, and then to just see if there's anything that we can look forward to creating here. But with that in mind, thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Welcome back. Let me take this off.